Hey everybody, Mr. Denton here. I'm gonna take you guys through sort of an introduction to the class with this slideshow I got here for you. We're gonna go through it pretty quick. I'm gonna try and keep most of these presentations that we do to at or under 20 minutes, and if I ever feel like I can't do that, I'll probably cut it off pretty close to that point and cut that presentation up into a couple parts. I don't want you guys having to stare at a screen and listen to me uh, for any length of time much longer than that. Okay, so we're gonna go through this stuff pretty fast, and the thing is, these are themes that we're going to be touching on and looking at throughout the entire class, but I also think they're just extremely important in general. And these are themes when you're talking about your role in our country and in your communities. These are things that you need to be looking for and thinking about in general for the rest of your life. Okay. So I'm going to take you through this stuff, and you can just follow along with your outline, fill it out as you go. Okay. So big idea number one, what does our democracy require? Okay. So we talked about this in class somewhat, touched on this idea. The United States is seen as a special nation. It is the most successful, most wealthy, freest country that has ever existed. Okay, so when we talk about our DNA and what makes America, America, those things down there in the bottom, and you got me in the screen, so I know it's probably cutting off this last one here, but freedom and choice, truth and facts, compromise and teamwork, and then citizens who are active and informed. Okay, so democracy is in government by the people. That means the citizens have to be informed. It also means if that doesn't take place, and if any of these things don't take place, if we don't compromise and work with each other, and if we don't believe in there being a truth, and we don't believe in there being facts, if we can't, we're never going to be able to meet in the middle or compromise if we can't at least agree on basic facts. Then freedom and choice and some of those other things that we pride ourselves on are going to go away. Okay. And how does that happen? We'll talk about that over time. Okay. But just know that all those things are important pieces of who we are. Okay. Okay. So this is my first time going through and doing one of these with the little picture-in-picture thing. I don't know how well it's working for you, but we're going to move on here. Number two. All right, big idea number two, American DNA. All right. So for you to really get anything out of all the things that we're going to look at here, it is important that you understand what makes us special. Okay. Because the thing is that's going to help you understand why you should appreciate what we have. And then hopefully you're going to take your job more seriously as a citizen. If you don't appreciate what we have, then you're probably not going to take it as seriously. So we're going to talk a little bit about what democracy is, why ours is so special, what has happened in history, because we do have examples of from history and from recent history when democracies fall apart. And we don't have to go that far back. And there's some, like I said, some really famous examples. What could lead to ours falling apart? Why the truth matters in society. Okay, what happens if you don't have a truth? If you don't have a common basis of facts that we can agree on, and we can debate about different philosophies about things that how we think things should be done, and what there's things along those lines. But if there's not at least some kind of basis of truth and facts, and we all live in our own universe, we can't even talk to each other, let alone compromise and actually make things happen. And again, America is all about compromise. It has been from the very beginning. You see the picture there, dating back to the Revolution and into the creation of the United States. Compromise has always been there. That's what we are about. Okay. And then finally, why we can't just sit on the sidelines, why we have to get involved. So the next thing there, how does our republic actually work? Okay. We'll talk a little bit, and this is, like I said, getting into the old school government stuff, but we're going to try to put a new spin on it and do some things, specifically play games to help us learn about some of these things. And so you'll see what that means here a little bit later on. But we're going to talk about the relationship between what democracy and republicanism is. And we're not talking about the two political parties, Democrats and Republicans. We're talking about two systems of government that we've kind of melded together. Okay, democracy involves people going and voting and choosing their leaders. Republicanism, okay, living in a republic means that we vote for the people that are going to represent us. That's what a republic is. You choose representatives. So we are a democratic republic. We'll talk more about that over time. So what that means is we're going to look at the pieces to our government, and so we have three branches. All right, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. You guys probably have heard that before, but it might have been a while for you. And that those branches create a system of checks and balances. That means that each of those branches are supposed to be co-equal. They have different powers. They have different responsibilities. They have different formats in terms of how they work. Some of them are elected. Some of those officials are not elected. But their powers kind of overlap, and they're there to keep each other in check. Our country was built to prevent America from ever becoming a tyranny, just to prevent anyone from ever becoming too powerful. We overthrew a king, someone who we thought was a tyrant, who we thought was, abusing our freedoms. And so we wanted to create a system of government that prevented anyone from ever being powerful enough to do that again. And so that means that our government is going to work against itself and struggle. And it's super frustrating to watch sometimes, but it's by design. And it's also something that's worked really well. America has been around for a long time, longer than any democracy in the history of the world. We have the oldest constitution in the world right now. But there's been a lot of other countries who've come and went because people come in and overthrow the government and take over and rise to power and do whatever they want. Can't do that around here. And that's part of what makes us special. Okay. We'll look at how laws are made and just in general, how our government works. Okay. We'll also look at the three different realms or levels of government. So you have those three branches, but then we also have a tiered government system because we have a federal level, all right, the national level. We have the state level. So we have the United States at the federal level. For us, the state level is obviously Illinois, and then the local level, okay, the county and city governments. And I touched on this, I think Monday, but not as much yesterday, where the kind of the irony is we like to pay so much attention to the federal level. It's national news and it's a competition. It's almost like competitive sports to watch those things. And the entertainment level's high and everything else. And they do. The thing is, the federal government is really important, and it creates these big, broad systems of power that make everything else beneath it possible. But when you get down to it, the farther you go down the line, the more influence that form of government has on your daily life. Okay, so in other words, you live in Alton, Illinois, or in Richland County at the very least. The people that you elect here within our county have more of an impact probably on your day-to-day life than some people that have maybe much more power. And the other thing that's cool about that is you have more influence over those people at the local level. So you can have a big impact on your day-to-day life by engaging with those people. Okay. So we're going to also look at what the Constitution says about your role in each of those different realms. Okay. Next big idea: modern American citizenship and patriotism. All right. So that means that this is basically talking about the last unit that we're going to cover. And we told you as time goes on, we're going to whittle down over the course of the term until we get to you and what your job is. Because really this class, it used to be about the government, And now it's meant to be about you. So you have to understand that government and understand what it's all about so that you can understand what your job is. Okay. So we'll look at some things like how do we protect our democracy? All right. And how you have to get involved, and some traditional activism and participation in government, but also what it means to be an effective citizen in the 21st century. So we'll look at media literacy, understanding, the whole concept of what fake news is and what it's not, and what you have to do so that you can guard your community against those things, what it means to be a digital citizen, and then also what it means to be active, okay, in our society. Okay, big idea number 5. All right, the truth and journalism. This is not going to be a unit. This is going to be something that we will cover throughout this class, kind of as an ongoing sort of project. Okay, it's going to be a constant theme. So you're going to look at things like freedom of speech, and in particular from the First Amendment, the need for a free press. All right, today is the most confusing time in the history of the world as far as what should we believe when we're looking at the media. What's the motives behind the media? What how we can guard ourselves against all the different, not just fake stuff, but just being overwhelmed by all the information. We want to be informed, but we have to be informed the right way, and it's hard to know what that actually means. So we're going to talk about that stuff, and you're going to learn about that along the way, and just understanding what bias is. And the thing is that it's important to understand that there's bias in everything. Okay, but bias doesn't equal fake news. Okay, and the reason we can sit here and say yes, bias is in everything is because every single human being is biased. You are, I am, everyone is, and so journalism and the media, those things are run by human beings. So there's going to be some bias that exists in those things. But there's a difference between something that has honest bias, okay, someone who's trying to report the facts and tell you the truth, but they may leave things out, or they may, do certain things. No matter how hard they try, that's going to happen. It is what it is, okay? And we need to understand that, know that that's there, and be aware of it. But bias doesn't make something propaganda, something that is created just for the simple fact of trying to influence someone. Okay. Infotainment, the media has evolved much of it into a thing that is there to make money. And if you think about it, people only want to watch if they're entertained. All right. So these journalism companies, and especially 24-hour cable news, and I'm talking about all of the networks that exist within that realm, they have to sell commercials. They have to get people to watch to make money and to be profitable. And so that means that the news has got to be entertaining. And somewhere along the way, someone figured out that folks don't really find it as interesting to sit there and just listen to the news being read as they do listening to people talk about the news and argue about it and scream and yell and, and just get all worked up about things. It's more exciting that way. And that's made us much more argumentative, and made us just made it a lot harder for us to get along and have conversations, to have what's called discourse, to discuss things rather than yelling at each other, especially yelling at each other through a computer screen where we feel kind of anonymous. Okay. So we'll look at that more as we go along. And then finally, fake news versus fake news. What is fake news? It started off as this idea, and there's a couple videos here on the right side of the screen. I'm going to try and attach those so that you can watch them on your own time. I'm not going to flip through them here. But they look at the concept of fake news and what it's about. And fake news is, it's something that's been kind of abducted by politicians. It's a phrase that they use to more or less describe anything that they feel like is either not being nice to them or not fair to them or whatever else. But the thing is, here's the deal. It's not the media's job to be, nice to politicians, okay, to always say good things about them. The truth is rarely nice about at least some things. Okay. And so politicians have just basically, they've started to use this term whenever someone, if they get called out about something, true or not, they use that term fake news. But that's not what fake news started out as and what it actually is, and which is people literally writing stories online for publications that are, just basically were created just to get people to click and go there. So they make them as sensational as possible. They literally make things up just to get people to go there. And when they go there, there are usually things on those websites that help those people get paid. Okay. And so we'll look at that more closely in later lessons. I don't want to get into that too much, but these bottom two videos here really kind of illustrate some of that stuff. And like I said, we'll cover that more over time. Tribalism and, that idea that I'm on one team, you're on the other team, and I don't care what my guy does or what he says or if he's even telling the truth. He's on my team, so I'm with him. And your guy, I don't care if he has good ideas or bad ideas. Doesn't really matter to me. He's on the other team, so I'm against him. Okay. We have gotten really, really bad about that. It makes it extremely difficult to ever make anything happen. And again, in America, we have to be able to compromise, but we can't compromise if we're, if I'm right and you're evil all the time. Okay. That's not going to happen. So finally, down there at the bottom, really big problem, relativism. Feeling like everyone has the ability to kind of decide what the truth is for themselves, or to decide what facts are. And there's some things that are just facts, and you don't get to decide whether it's true or not. Okay. One of my favorite quotes are, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. You can have your own opinion. We can disagree about things, and, we can even disagree about what's right and wrong. But there are certain things that there's no opinion involved. It's just the truth. It's just a fact. And if we can't even agree on those kinds of things, we're going to be in big trouble, where things are going to continue to get worse. So that's something that you guys are going to have to help us change. I'm going to flip through this. Like I said, hopefully I'll have these videos in there for you. Lastly, this patriotism. What is patriotism? The bottom line is, and there's a lot of information there, and I'll leave that up so you guys can kind of fill in your blanks there. But what we want is real, authentic, service-based patriotism, not just the all caps patriotism where we like to go out and scream and show how patriotic we are by, wearing flags all over ourselves and calling people out for not being American enough and not speaking English and just some of those other things. That stuff is not what true patriotism is. True patriotism is knowing what our country is all about, what it stands for, what it means, what our values really are, how America got to be America, what makes us us, knowing those things and appreciating those things, and then serving our country in a way that benefits us and our fellow Americans and all those things. Okay. Patriotism, real patriotism, authentic patriotism cannot just be boiled down to us versus them. Okay. Here in America, us versus them, that's not what we want, because we want it to be all of us, because America's always been at its best when it's all of us, and we've always been at our worst when we're divided. And leaders that want to control people, one of the number one ways they do that is they try to get everybody, get all their people angry at each other, because they're easier to control that way. When everybody's all together on things, that's a lot tougher to do. And it's not even just us versus the world. Okay. Our greatest moments in history, especially in modern history, we've always worked with other countries. We want other countries to want to be like us. And so we do that by, supporting those people and doing it in the right way and showing them the right way and showing them that America is the way to be. So that's really important stuff. Bottom line, respect matters. We should respect our flag. Earlier when I mentioned the idea of but some people say that or feel like that if they wave the flag around or whatever else, well then that makes them a patriot. Well, do they actually understand what that flag means and what it's all about? So respecting the flag does matter, and the national anthem and all those things are really, really important. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're not, because they are. Those symbols are extremely important, but we got to understand, if you don't understand what that flag means, then you need to learn that before you go waving it around, I think. And so we want to make sure that we understand those things and understand why they're so important. Bottom line, again, down there at the very bottom, if we love our country, we need to understand what it actually stands for. And this country's always stood for compromise. We need to value that. We need to value the idea of working together. And we need to understand and realize how complicated our country is. And it's complicated in a good way, and it gets frustrating sometimes. But we need to know what our country's all about, and if we're going to appreciate it, and we have to appreciate it if we're going to be able to do our jobs the way that we're supposed to do them. Going to click through that stuff, and I think that's actually it. Okay, so you can go ahead and make sure you got everything filled out on that outline, and submit it. And I have no idea how long I've been at this, but hopefully it's at that 20-minute mark or so. And appreciate you guys listening and following along. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will see you guys soon.